another edition of the Weekend Review with E.J. Borkart.
That is right. This is another edition of the Weekend Review where we will be discussing what has happened this past week in Rebellion on Aquar, where we will review what has happened thus far in the Super Morpher and take a sneak peek at what is coming up next in the Super Morpher. Still, the project I am most excited about. I'll give you guys a bit of an update after that about some of the projects I've been working on, where I want to go from here since I'm going to have another opening for a story soon. Just what I'm going to be going towards next. The picture from the introduction is of a lady named Crystal from my story Raiko Ameshi. She is going to be a main character. Very, very powerful Earth Angel that has powers that would be similar to the Green Lanterns. Look forward to Raiko Ameshi when I finally finish writing that story and get that published. The music, as per usual, is from Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Excellent show. I highly recommend it. I do not own it, but I still enjoy it. So let's go ahead and get started with talking about what happened this past week in Rebellion in Aquar. Terran goes into the marketplace expecting to find people praising the masked man. He's primarily there to get the bread for the orphanage for that day. And what he finds instead is chaos, very depressed people. Due to the masked man's actions, we see that Obadiah can no longer afford to give the bread to the orphanage, his 2-day-old bread, because that sells for the same price that day-olds used to be. Taxes have raised on everyone to cover the damages from this guy. The miners have all lost their jobs because of their attack. Well, not all the miners, but the miners for Hope's Landing mining site until repairs can be made. And a riot breaks out with the miners because they have no money and everything is so much more expensive. The merchants that are still able to afford to stay open are charging insane prices. It would be a lot like charging $4 for a gallon of gas, except more like $12. That would be really scary. If that ever happens, I'm gonna bike a lot. Anyway, so Terran goes back to the orphanage without any food for them. And then we see Scott meeting with Lawrence. And essentially the gist of it is they're working on a new project, a type of acid that will eat through rock but will leave the chloride alone. They have not had a successful test to do what they want at this point. Instead, they've only managed to make something that'll eat through the rock and alter the chloride into something that they haven't discovered a use for yet. And that they're going to continue watching Terran and looking out for any other possible people who may have stolen their prototype. Scott has decided he wants to meet with the Rebellion again, wants to figure out a way to guide them through this chaos to give the most advantage to himself and not to get caught because of his connection with them. And he sees a possibility of trying to get the masked man to be to work for him to take out his competition by destroying government mining sites and possibly take out some of his own sites to take the suspicion off of him. And then we see Terran finally admit to Eugene that he is the masked man. And Eugene is very upset. Terran has been lying to him this entire time. He's killed 15 people. Very, very upset by this turn of events. But he's going to do everything he can to help Terran get through this and to somehow make things better on the planet without turning himself in and getting himself killed. They're not sure how to do that yet, but Eugene suggests going and visiting with Troy, seeing what Troy can do for them. Before Terran has a chance to go ahead and tell Troy that he's the masked man. How can he get out of this? He finds out that even Troy is ready to string the masked man up and is very, very, very upset with him. So Taryn does not reveal that at that time. Yes, and so Taryn doesn't know where to go from here. So that is a review of what has happened this week on my blog. And now we're going to take a look at the story thus far for the Super Morpher.
Previously on the Super Morpher.
I like this new announcer. This is nice. I like this. So the story thus far is Ryan is a football player who he is best friends with a young scientist named Jordan. Jordan is just absolutely brilliant. He has invented a process and a formula for taking ordinary fabric and making it indestructible. Unfortunately, he has Ryan in there assisting him. Considering there wasn't really much heavy lifting involved with it, I think I'm going to eventually go back and edit it to say that Ryan is his videographer. He's videotaping everything that Jordan does for him. And while Ryan's in there, he makes up a random chemical mixture just because he likes to watch the different reactions. The chemicals change colors. And that gets loaded into the machine instead of the one that they're supposed to do. And Ryan gets shot with it. And it gives him incredible powers, enhanced healing, enhanced strength, enhanced agility. And most importantly, he can transform into any substance that he touches with the palm of his hand. After Ryan quits the football team to work on getting some control over it, because he, for one thing, needs special gloves on to not absorb everything he touches, with absolutely no control over it. He also needs to get a handle on his super strength because he hurt one of his fellow teammates in practice by accident. And so Jordan convinces Ryan that he should become the Super Morpher. During this training, Ryan meets a girl named Becky. They start going out. They're having a lot of fun. Things get very serious. That comes in later, and but you know, Ryan's only dating Becky because the girl that he really likes, Kari, he wants to try and make her jealous to go out with him because she won't go out with him until he's a Christian, and he absolutely refuses to do that. And along the way, Ryan goes out and he fights against. Well, the first fight he gets into is against a robot that he demonstrates his powers. Police show up, think he's the robber, want to arrest him. He escapes, has a very iffy relationship with the police after that. They see him and want to arrest him, and he doesn't want to be arrested. So you can see there's a conflict of interest there. He goes around fighting normal criminals and saving people from burning buildings, trying to stop robberies, and as a result, he gets into a situation where one of the robbers that he is fighting takes a hostage, and he's going to let them escape because the police out there, so they can take care of this robber better than he could handle him with a hostage. And the hostage, the robber, and 5 police officers end up dying because he let this guy go. And so that really planted doubts in his mind if he wanted to keep on doing this, the people that are getting hurt. He's later able to find out that the 2 of the robberies that he has thought to have been gang activity. He found out where those gangs hang out, and he goes and he takes out both gangs entirely. This upsets the main crime boss who owns all the crime in the city, known as the Spider, and he decides that he really wants Ryan to work for him because the only thing better than getting a superhero out of your way is getting a superhero on your team. And so he puts out a bounty on his head. Ryan gets shot with a rocket launcher. It really hurts. He's still able to take out those bad guys, but he decides that it puts even more doubts in his mind. If things are going to get this intense and the robberies are going to get worse instead of better, does he really want to stay involved in this? Gets attacked by another robot, stays up all night chasing after this thing because he can't destroy it, and it escapes. And his parents come and corner him in the morning, and they're like, hey, we heard you quit football. Stop that. Or we're not going to give you money. So go join football. And he goes to school, finally agrees to go out go to a Bible study with Kari, so she'll go out on a date with him. And the football coach comes and tells him, "Hey, Ryan, it just so happens that the last game that there was a professional scout looking for you, so you should really come back." Ryan decides that he would love to play in the pros, and so he's going to give up being a super morpher and go back to being a normal guy playing football. He has his abilities under control. He feels that he can control his strengths so he doesn't really hurt anyone, but still use them to his advantage to become just a devastating force on the field. And so Jordan is very upset. He tries very, very hard to convince Ryan that he needs to come back and be the super morpher. You can't give up. Things are going to get worse. And things do get worse. The city just plummets down into crime as the criminals try and draw Ryan out so that the Spider can talk to him to get him to work for him. Ryan will have nothing to do with it. He is giving up the super morpher. He's done. And then he goes to the game. He does so well. He holds, practically single-handedly, holds the other team to 20 yards of offense in the entire game. And he talks with the scout. The scout pretty much says, "I'm going to be back next week. If you do this good next week, you pretty much have a guaranteed spot on the Bote Boars team." Ryan goes back to brag to Jordan and finds Jordan about to shoot himself to try and give himself superpowers. So that has been a brief look at the story thus far. If this sounds interesting to you, you can find the entire story that I have written so far on my archives page of my blog. This is honestly the project I am most excited about at the moment. I'm very, very tempted to drop all the other stories I'm writing at the moment and focus entirely on this one until I get this excitement, adrenaline for it out of my system. But I think I'm going to continue doing it the way I have been. And fortunately enough for me, the next chapter that I'm going to be doing is the Super Morpher. So here is a sneak peek of what is coming next week. The Super Morpher returns. And let's see here, what else can I tell you about this? Super Morpher returns. The Spider finally gets his meeting with Ryan, and there are multiple plots running to find out Ryan's secret identity, to use that against him, that may put Jordan in some danger. So that has been your weekend review of the Super Morpher and a look at what we did this week. This week in Rebellion on Aquar. Now, obviously, if you follow my audio recordings of where I've been reading the story of Ahir Guardian of Malor, you'll realize that I've hit the point where I'm completely caught up with the recordings as I am for what I have written. So I'm not going to do any more recordings, not going to start a new project for another three weeks to a month, because then I'll have the last written chapter of Ahir Guardian of Malor out. I'll be able to do the last audio chapter, and then I have to decide which of my stories, first of all, I want to start writing next, and which one I would like to start recording next. I've had a lot of ideas for stories to start on. I want to do a story based off of one of my favorite books, Roy Koimeshi, a spin-off, a little side series. I could potentially start on the sequel to Ahir Guardian of Malor, but I want to hold off on that until I finish the rewrite, which I will discuss later, because I have started rewriting Ahir, and I'm going more in depth, and I'm really liking what I'm getting so far out of this story. I think I'll preview a chapter of it someday, and I think you guys will agree that it's better than what it used to be. A lot better. And there's also the possibility of me doing a story about some superheroes from the future called The Outcasts. Or I've come up with the idea for doing possibly one of my other story ideas, the Goddard brothers, the story of two brothers who really love science that end up having this experiment done on them that gives them superpowers to where they combine themselves into one being, and they have to try and stop one, the scientist who did this to them, two, the other test subjects that escape that have less than admirable goals in mind. Or there's another one I did where it'd be a story more like a ancient mythology type of thing, where it's just like the ancient heroes that the Greeks had that rose up to fight against all these titans and monsters and things. Something similar to that. I've got a couple weeks to figure out which of those stories I want to follow, and I'm not sure which one to go after just yet. If you have any advice, or if you have an opinion on the matter, which one you would like to see the most, which sounds most interesting to you, leave it down below. I'd love to hear some feedback. I want to write what you guys want to read. And the one other thing that I wanted to talk about, well, first of all, if you have an opinion, which of my other 3 stories you'd like me to start recording, Super Morpher, Beast Blades, or Rebellion and Aquar, obviously Super Morpher or Beast Blades would be better since it's longer, or there's more chapters for me to work with. But I have started to rewrite for here. I suppose I already addressed this. Anyway, in case you were unaware, I have written a book called The Kids on the Case, Our First Case. It is a kids detective series. It's going to eventually lead up into a superhero story. It's going to be a series of series, 3 different series within this series. It's a story about some kids who get bored one summer and decide to go and help the police look for clues to arrest the bad guys who did a bank robbery and then other various nefarious deeds. Ooh, various nefarious. I'm not sure if that's a good thing to say together or not. Anyway, so if you're interested in picking up your own copy of that, you can find it at lulu.com to search for The Kids on the Case, and you should be able to find your own copy. Now, one last thing I want to mention. Do I want to mention anything else? I think that about does it. So, I want to thank you guys all for coming and checking out my stories, for checking out my blog, for checking out this video. If there's anything you want to see more of, if there's a story that you really like or something that you think I should really change about a story, let me know. These are the rough drafts of these stories. If you come up with something better than what I've come up with, I am very open to changing them. I just want these stories to be as good as they possibly can. And one last thing before I leave, just remember, it may be love that makes the world go round, but it's stories that make the trip worthwhile. You all have a great week. Bye.